Okay, so Trinity, I was going to ask you some questions about the suffix spelling rules. What is a suffix spelling rule?
A suffix spelling rule helps you add suffixes.
Exactly. What kind of spelling do you have to do to the base word before you add a suffix? So the first rule we learned was called
Plurals.
the plurals.
With plurals, you add
Either
es after.
you add either a,
Oh yeah, you add either an s or es.
and when do you add es?
You add es after s, sh, ch, o, or x.
Good. So after s, sh, ch, and x, why do we add the es? Do you know?
Wait, what was the question again?
Why would you add an es instead of an s after those letters?
Because it.
If I said box,
Because
dress.
Because it already ends in s, and so you can't.
Well,
go
what
like
if I said lunch?
lunch? It blends too much.
Yeah,
so
we
you can
can't
barely hear it.
Exactly. We can't hear the s. So if we can't hear that s that's being added to make a plural, we have to add es. Well, what about with an o? Why do we add es instead of just an s? What happens if I say tomato and I add an s? The last syllable would be T-O-S. What kind of syllable would that be?
It would be a closed
syllable.
So then the o wouldn't say o.
It would say
Ah.
ah, exactly. And so the next suffix spelling rule that you learned was,
The doubling rule.
and tell me about that rule.
First, you check if the suffix is a vowel suffix. If it is, then you check if it's vowel consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant at the end. If that is yes, then check if the end is accented. If that is yes, then double the last letter in the word.
Excellent, excellent. That's very good. Do you know what letters we never double?
We never double Y. Or
Yeah,
we
that's
do.
a vowel. So we wouldn't.
We
It
don't
wouldn't be
double,
consonant, vowel, consonant, right?
So we don't double vowels, really.
No,
We don't double
because it
vowels.
has to be consonant, vowel, consonant at the
Yeah.
end. So right. But we're moving into that next rule. We never double a W or an X or a K. We never double those. So the last rule, you just almost mentioned it there. It's called the
Change rule.
not the last rule. This is our third one, right?
Yeah.
And this was in all three of these rules, the plural rule and the doubling rule and the change rule. These rules were all in book 5. Change rule, I believe, came up in lesson 6, and the doubling rule was maybe in lesson 3, and the plurals was in lesson 1. Okay, so tell me about the change rule.
You change Y to an I if you're adding any suffix, but not if the suffix ends in I.
Not if
starts
the suffix
in I.
starts with an I,
Or the Y is part of a vowel team.
Exactly. Okay. And then the last rule that we learn, and we don't learn it until book 6, lesson 6, I believe also. And that's called
the dropping rule. First, you have to drop the E before adding a vowel suffix.
Yeah, that's the only time we do it is when it's a vowel suffix we're adding. That's kind of like what other suffix spelling rule?
It's kind of like
The doubling rule or the plural rule?
the doubling.
Doubling rule. So the doubling and dropping rule, you only use them if there's a vowel suffix that you're adding. And so when do you drop, or when do you not drop it? that mean?
If it's needed for a C to say S or a G to say J.
Okay, very good. So I think you have a pretty good understanding of those suffix spelling rules. Thanks.